Yes, and it's a movie with a character named Uxbal who is terminally ill but speaks to dead people, and has an estranged wife who's bipolar who abuses their children, and it features these poor illegal immigrants who are murdered accidentally, including women and children. So we don't say this is a happy-go-lucky movie. We say this is a very serious drama about a man's journey. How did this sort of come about with this story? And this is also the first time you've not played with time sequences in your movies, right?
Yeah, I think this is basically, let's understand this from the genre perspective first. I think it's important to understand that this is closer to the rules of the tragedy as a genre itself, more than a drama or a melodrama. You know, that's the game. That's the rule of the games.
It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy, of course. It's in modern times, but more in the classic version of it. And if it can be attached or brand in some way, because it has some elements that make it a little bit more complex than that. But yeah, it was trying really to get into that exercise of putting a character which, he's not a king, he's not King Lear or Macbeth or Medea. This is not a grandiloquent character. It's just a simple, ordinary man
with a special gift
in a very complex world that we are living, with a social commentary, metaphysical question. So all these elements, but trying to get the idea of how somebody that has been or who is hit uncontrollably by different aspects, and destiny has just hit him in every angle, can be found in some enlightening process, confronting a huge black hole, confronting death. How can he find light in it? And that's how tragedy works, you know what I mean? The rules of the tragedy is how a character can find with dignity a way to maintain himself vertical and redeem himself, put himself together. And that's what tragedy is about. And that's the exercise of this. And I found sometimes that more than bleak or dark or things like that, or painful, this is a human drama. I found sometimes in my country, in 20 minutes of a TV newscast, you can find more pain and more black darkness than in the whole film. It's the first time, as you said, that I don't work with the multilinear and different structures and a choral basic. This is basically a film that I deliberately want to tell and construct and write on the shoulders of one single character, in one single point of view, in one neighborhood, in my own language, which is Spanish. That was the goal. I end up finishing this film in a structure that is a circular structure, because it begins where it ends. But the narrative and the journey is very linear in that sense. Even when I always, because instinct or whatever, I end up adding these, secondary subplots, subtramas and character that is like a galaxy where the sun is this huge character, which is played by Javier Bardem and Uxbal, and all these planets, how these planets depend on him and how he depends on all of them. And differently from Babel, for example, where one event create a ripple effect affecting people's life around the world. This was more an exploration of how, not an event, but how a character, how one person create the ripple effect by their own choices and things, and how many people is depending on one single ordinary guy. That was the attempt to explore.
Is this your first film completely in Spanish since Amores Perros? Your first film?
Yeah, I shot in Spanish 25% of Babel in the Mexican border, in the Mexican desert of the nanny and the migration case.
With the little children being lost.
Exactly, in the Mexican nanny. But since Amores Perros, a full Spanish speaking, I haven't had before, and I was really happy to don't find any translator in the set. only for the Chinese and the Senegalese sometimes, you know. But most of all, it was in Spanish, and that was a relief. You know?
And by writing this specifically for Javier, I mean, you mentioned before that it was kind of like two neurotic perfectionists working together where you were never would get enough, and your desire to go to the bone of truth for each scene. And Javier just was saying how the second day of filming, where he's diagnosed with terminal cancer, you shot, he did that 100 times, he said, from all these different scenes. Do you ever worry that your actor's not going to make it through the film, that you're just going to, you know, wear them out halfway through? This was a four or 5 months of work.
This was an extreme situation because that's the way I shot. I think actors, when they go and work with me, they know what kind of process I have. They talk between each other. There's a lot of, you know, even I heard that Brad Pitt said to Sean, "You should have told me before. You should have warned me better." And I get along very well with them because I demand a lot. I can be very demanding. I can be unbearable sometimes. I can ask a lot of takes, but it's just trying to find perfection, at least in my point of view, and try to protect them and to make sure that I will have everything I need in the kind of right core and right tone, right little things to get into the editing room. And that is the benefit of them. And I try to make a condition and all the things that can make them feel protected and to create the conditions to make it feel right, and they can fail and they can try and we can sculpt. Then I will sculpt again and rewrite again in the editing room. But I think that's, if after 2 years of writing a script, I just have one opportunity in a couple of hours to get everything, and what it's not done, it will never be done. You are writing an original text, a partiture. You know, you are writing in that moment the film. You are conducting, and if you don't get that, you don't get it. So I got into the bones there, but I shared that process with them. And yes, it's tough because in this case, differently from 21 Grams or the other stories, I was used to get 2-3 weeks with one actor, one actress, and then, okay, move, and then the next one. This time, Javier spent 4 months and 1 week shooting this. And I was just dealing with one person, which I saw little by little, he was just getting impact. And both of us were getting impact physically, emotionally with the subject matter. So this was very extreme, and we almost collapsed. It was almost a survivor kind of thing. It was very tough.
The name Uxbal, where does that come from? Does it mean something, his character's name?
No.
Uxbal?
It's a maid name. It's a maid name that I heard in a guy that was shooting a video, making of video in Babel. I asked him his name. He said Uxbal, and I said, where they come up? My father, and I just fascinated by that name. So I decided to get that name for this. And then, you know, I was doubtful, and then in draft number 12, I changed the name just to see how it looks. And when I read, I said, this is shit. I mean, without Uxbal, this guy is Uxbal. That's it. The same Marambra, you know, it's a nickname of my grandmother's sister, so it didn't exist. So.
When you look at an inspiration for your next film, where does it come from? Is it a dream? Is it a story you might read in the newspaper? Are you open to sort of anything something you mentioned 20 minutes on TV can be a tragedy? And being Mexican especially, your country is going through this horrible drug war right now with the gangs and the authorities. It seems like, you know, does that enter into it? It's like your country's at war the way the United States has been at war for 10 years.
Every time is different. I think the creative process is pretty mysterious for me, and I don't want to understand it too much because I think that will paralyze me. I don't want to analyze that.